It's lights out, and welcome back, everybody, to the Low Downforce podcast, the forefront Formula One podcast. And fresh off the Japanese Grand Prix, you have the whole quad, the whole squad. We have Josh, J9, Matt, and myself, Ben. I stayed up and watched the race. I wish I didn't. I think some others of us might feel the same, but there's certainly still plenty of talking points from the race. That was the first of a triple header on one of the greatest tracks of the year. But without further ado, I feel like I already hinted at it, but Matt, race rating 0 to 10. How are you rating this?
You're offering me the 0. That's tempting.
I could go negative if you need me to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I gave it a 1.5. Not just because of the predictions. There was hardly any movement in position. There was a little bit of scrappiness between Max and Lando in the pits, and that was basically it. There was nothing to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I went for last race in China. I went with a 0 because of the Ferrari double disqualification. Both Ferraris finished. Actually, every driver finished, but absolutely nothing happened. So I'm going for a 1. It's just marginally better than a double disqualification.
I also went for a 1. And I think Carlos Sainz post-race actually summed it up best. He said, Suzuka is turning into a Monaco. And it's spot on because Monaco qualifying is usually one of the most exciting qualifying sessions of the year. We will get into it very briefly. But I thought the Japanese Grand Prix qualifying session was incredible. And then the race was, like I said, I wish I didn't stay awake for it.
Yep.
It was rough.
I'm giving it a 0. I stayed awake for it and I fell asleep.
Oh, yeah.
Race.
It made for
and
a
the
very
crazy
good
thing
nap.
is you missed nothing.
That's
fell
true.
asleep
I
and
woke
missed
up
nothing.
and it was the same result as when I had gone to sleep. So
Yeah, I woke up
missed
and
absolutely
watched
nothing.
it first thing in the morning, and I'm glad I did not stay up.
If any of our listeners use a white noise machine, you might as well literally listen to the Japanese Grand Prix all year long. Like,
Pretty much.
you could
I
just
don't know,
fall
I could-
asleep to
Honestly,
it.
could
watching
save-
paint dry would have been more thrilling.
I have to disagree with the white noise machine because I'll save this rant for another time. But about 2/3 into the race, I was ready to mute the TV because I could not stand Jolyon Palmer on F1 TV, just absolutely ragging on the race. But I guess what else can you do when nothing is happening? There's nothing exciting.
Yeah. You're getting paid to
commentate on.
broadcast the same thing happening for how many laps? 53 laps? Like it's just a rough one.
But I think there's still some stuff to unpack. There's still some things to talk about. But before that, we have to talk a little bit about qualifying. I mentioned that it was the best session of the weekend, Monaco-esque, if you will. And that's exactly what Max did. I'm going to kick it to him. He was my speedy standout. He obviously grabs pole, which some people might be like, hey, it's Max Verstappen and pole, nothing new. Everybody, media fans, drivers have all been talking about the McLarens being on top. Lando had the fastest first sector. Oscar had the fastest second and third sectors of the race. Max had no fastest sector, and he sets pole position by 12 thousandths of a second. He sets the lap record for the Suzuka International Racing Course. And even though, there aren't any tight walls like Monaco, even though, it's not rainy or anything, it's perfectly dry, this needs to be remembered as one of the best qualifying laps in Formula One history. And I think, as somebody who cheers against Max, usually because I'm a McLaren fan, the more I think about it, it is very clear that McLaren right now is the best team, but unquestionably, Max is far and away the best driver on the grid, and he continues to prove that.
Yeah, I mean, Max was so on the limit. He said in the post-qualifying interview, he said that he thought he almost would have crashed 5 times, that he almost lost the car. And I mean, within one lap, that's just driving directly on the limit. And within the Red Bull car, the margins are so thin, and he nailed it.
Yeah, I know we're not going to go into practice, but both of the Red Bull drivers were thinking that this was a very sensitive car between practice and qualifying. So obviously we'll get into the race here in a second, but that Red Bull, performance by Max is it says so much about him as a driver, how he can just overcome literally like a shitty car.
I mean, a little spoiler alert, although it probably isn't a surprise. If Max grabs pole, he takes the win. It's happened in every race so far, including the sprint in China that the pole sitter has gone on to win the race. But Max is literally unbeaten in a meaningful session since pre-COVID. So there was no race in Japan for a couple of years because of COVID. But literally now, 4 years in a row, Max has taken pole and won the race. So if there was ever a track designed specifically for somebody, it seems to be Max. On the flip side, though, talking about somebody who disappointed, I got to go Esteban Ocon. Coming off of really good points in China, he's out in Q1. He qualifies P18. That by itself is a huge step backwards, but what really makes it sting is his rookie teammate, Ollie Behrman, makes it into Q3, albeit only in P10, but we know this track, there's only one DRS zone on the main straight. We know it's a narrow track and hard to overtake, so qualifying is all that more important. And so when you're finishing P18 in quali, that's almost your weekend written off right there, barring something crazy happening. And then the only other real note, you can throw in the little spiciness. Yuki, first time in a Red Bull, P15. Liam Lawson, first time this season in a V-Carb. They swap positions, P14, so lining up next to each other. Of course, you got to have the drama storylines. I'm sure Drive to Survive will make 30 minutes about that somehow. Course. But the only other thing worth noting, Carlos Sainz qualifies P12, but at the end of Q2, he impedes Lewis Hamilton, which gives him a 3-place grid drop. So other than that, I think that might be our first quali penalty of the year. So I always put it in our little agenda to send out, like, make sure to mention any quali penalties, and it's been a useless bullet point until now. But that sets us up for the race. And needless to say, as we've said multiple times already, qualifying meant a lot this weekend.
Yeah, and before the race even started, Carlos Sainz was late to the national anthem because he was having some stomach problems going on, and he got fined $20,000. So, like,
most expensive poop of his life.
Yeah, literally.
So tough for the grid position, and then the fine on top of that before the race even starts.
Could he have been trying to take out his appendix again?
I mean, if that was the case, that would mean he would win the next race he was in. So
true.
Maybe it would be a good thing for him. But yeah, I mean, like we said, not a whole lot happening in the race. Max wins, Lando 2, Piastri 3. Leclerc is the lead Ferrari in 4th. Russell, Antonelli 5, 6. Lewis Hamilton 7. He gained a spot in the race. Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull finished 8th. Albon and Behrman wrap up the top 10.
Like you said, that Lewis Hadjar swap was the only swap of the top 10 the whole race.
So not a whole lot happened. Literally the only moment, and Matt, you alluded to it earlier, within the entire race that I think is worth talking about is Max Verstappen and Lando Norris pit on the same lap, and Max comes out. He was ahead of Lando and comes out just ahead of Lando. Lando tries to, while still in the pit lane, tries to get ahead, but he's behind, drives to the grass, and then he complains about it on the team radio, as he does, because I'm a Lando Norris hater.
I think it's pretty clear post-race, though, that it was like the type of thing that Lando was just putting it on the radio to be like, to try and get something, but like fully knowing nothing was going to come of it. Because afterwards, after the race, he's like, yeah, like obviously I came out alongside and ran out of space. Like Max wasn't going to give me space. I think it was more like all the drivers were bored and Lando was trying to make something happen.
And Max was so right. I mean, he said Lando ran himself into the grass.
He really did.
You seen that meme where the guy's like biking and he sticks he puts a stick into his own front wheel and trips, and he's like, "Oh my god, somebody else did this to me." I saw that happening to Lando, where he just basically was like, "Oh my god, Max did this to me." Like, dude, it was a valiant effort. I will totally stand behind Lando in his effort to try and get there beside Max, but like he drove himself into the grass. What else are you going to say?
Lando turned off the pit limiter early and didn't get any penalty for it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But Max somehow noticed, and he just has super senses. I don't know how.
Was that confirmed that he actually turned it off early? Because they didn't investigate it, so I assume that would be a slam dunk penalty because they really
I saw it on
cracked
the
down
internet, so it's got to be true.
I mean, they really cracked down on safety. We saw multiple times last year, even if, albeit briefly, if you got caught speeding in the pit lane, that was a slam dunk penalty. Lewis got one of those last year at Qatar, the second to last race of the year, I remember. So,
yeah, I mean, well,
I feel like they would have gotten Lando for that if that was true.
Yeah, speaking of turning off your settings or not turning them off correctly, I know we didn't hit on practice too much, but Jack Doohan in practice totally forgot to turn off his DRS, and that feels a bit familiar.
That was certainly one of the more interesting points of the weekend, which maybe it tells you how boring the weekend is, but it's a scary crash. So they reported that the peak impact was 50 Gs, which to the layman is like instant death. Like, that will knock you out. That's higher than fighter jets doing barrel rolls. That's higher than launching into space, albeit for a short time. But he didn't turn DRS off going into turn one because normally DRS will close if you have to brake. But since you don't have to brake immediately going to turn one, you have to manually do it. So it doesn't look good for him as, like a rookie making like a driver error like that. But some of the angles they show, he must have hit the wall at like 150 plus miles an hour. It's unbelievable how safe these cars are because definitely shaken up, and he showed after the race he needed help actually getting out of his car. He was favoring one hand more than the other, which is a little bit of a concern, but it's crazy to take an impact like that. Like us in Atlanta, we see a horrible wreck like that on like 85 or 400 or something. We're like, oh, that didn't end up well for somebody, but largely okay. But you said, Josh, that's the whole race. Like, I mean, nothing really crazy happens. So we've talked about doing a segment called Track Takes that I want to pilot here a little bit because there wasn't as much about the race to talk about. So I'm going to give kind of an overlying opinion, and I want Josh, Jay, and Matt, the three of them are either going to say green flag, they hard agree, red flag, they're not buying it, or yellow flag, we got to wait and see. But the way this race went, the way the overcut didn't work, the way the undercut didn't work, the way nobody was having enough tire degradation to do anything, I think Pirelli should start targeting tires. Like, I think it should be like a 2-stop races should be the target, not, most of the time the tires selected are designed for a 1-stop. I think there needs to be more jeopardy coming to strategy and pit stops, and I think that you have more risk of a pit crew messing up something like that that'll actually shake up the race. I think Pirelli needs to get a little more aggressive with their tires that they choose for races.
I'm going big green flag on that. I think the tires being the hardest compounds for this race on top of the resurfaced track, it was just too easy to manage tires for this race, and it made it impossible for, nobody's tires were dying, so there was no pit strategy, really. Like, everyone just did a 1-stop, and it was pretty easy. Not everyone did a 1-stop, but overall, there wasn't a whole lot of strategy. So I'm big green flag. I think they should pick tires that will degrade with the intent of improving the racing.
That's fair. It really is, but I do have to go with the yellow flag here. I think that, honestly, a 1-stop really it's the minimum, right? Like, we know that if you've ever listened to our F101s, if you've ever seen a race, everybody's got to take a pit stop, and to require more than that is not necessarily going to improve the sport. I think
wouldn't be requiring it. You would just be picking tires that lend their hand more to that.
It would be a lot riskier to 1-stop it is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, and I that's why I'm saying a yellow flag and not a red. I don't disagree, but I really do think that we have certain races on the calendar that just fit that 1-stop window. And yes, there are some times where we'd rather see a little bit more pit strategy coming back into the race and the strategy for the teams. But at the same time, I'm not so keen on making things more aggressive just right now, especially with the the regulation changes next year. Like, I have no idea how that's going to happen. So if there was maybe like 3 or 4 years before a regulation change, sure, green flag, easy. Like make it harder, like make it more decisive for the teams. But right now, I just can't say.
I am a total green flag actually on this. I think more stops puts more strategy into it. You saw different drivers, especially Hamilton this past race, use different tires than the rest of the crew, and so rest of the teams, and so that made it a little bit more strategic in the way that you're stopping, in the way that you're putting on hard, medium, soft. And I think that is what adds an element of surprise to it, especially in races where there might be yellow flags, red flags, and it's about just timing. People always get screwed on yellow flag races, and it's always kind of interesting to see. But I think I think the strategy in it would give us some better viewing, I guess. Wouldn't be as boring of a race. So I actually like more stops because you really have to think about it and put some thought into what you want to drive.
Well, I do have one thing to add, which is that I was looking at some of the statistics around the lap times and the degradation of the tires. And honestly, it was better to put on hards than it was to put on mediums in this race. And again, I have to stick with my yellow flag because even though you've got to run both tires or 2 sets of tires, right? I don't know if I can stand behind forcing a 2-stop race.
Like, it's interesting you say that because I know the circumstances are slightly different, but because Monaco had an early crash last year, everybody changed their mandatory tire switch under a red flag. There was no strategy at all. They're actually mandating just for Monaco this year that you will have to swap tires twice. So slightly different circumstances, but significant. There's clearly a universal understanding that strategy is a vital part of this sport. And another vital part of this podcast is our tops and flops, our regular scheduled programming. Of course, there are definitely some people, definitely some things that let us down. But first, we got to give credit to those who deserve it. Let's go to J9 first. Let's go right back to you, Matt, first for your top.
Yeah, I went with Andrea Kimi Antonelli. I just love the fact that a rookie is performing at the level he is. And yeah, he may not be like the next Max Verstappen. I don't really know how to judge that. It wasn't in the sport, really. Truthfully, like, I can't say I ever saw Max coming up, but I can say that Andrea is just killing it week in, week out. He's getting points, and I love to see it.
I think you're onto something. I thought about putting Kimi Antonelli as my top, but I agree with you. I wasn't really a fan when Max was a rookie and starting up. I wasn't a fan when Lewis was coming up. But those two are automatically in the GOAT conversation now. So if you're the rookie getting compared to those two, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah, and he's the youngest driver to ever set the fastest lap in a race, and he's the youngest driver to ever lead the race. And the next closest is Verstappen, who was 3 days older at the time when he said
only 3 days.
Yeah, so it is crazy how similar those two ages are.
And it's interesting. I'm going Mercedes overall. I think outside of Red Bull and McLaren, I think that they really came with a lot of power here, and they are just consistently getting solid points. It's not the best points that you could get, but it's certainly not the worst, and they're consistently right up there between 3 and 6 every single race, and I think that's really going to do well for them. And I know that they're trying to reinvent themselves, have Russell be that lead, and Kimi just coming off with such a great rookie season. And I think that the more consistent they can be, the better it's going to be in the end. So I really have to give a top to them. I can consistently root for them to get good results.
I think Mercedes deserves a lot of credit this year because I think a lot of people thought this season was going to be close because it was going to be a continuation at the end of last year. And I think the season has a lot of battles up and down the grid, but I think it's totally different from last year. Mercedes had a rough year last year and they've stood out. Everyone thought Ferrari was going to be, 1-to-1 with McLaren. That hasn't really shown up. People thought Max would be falling off, but he's still right back in it. The midfield battle is hot. So I think we're still in for a good season. We just have to, I guess, retrain our brains because it's not quite what we expected. I am going for my top. I am going with the grass at Suzuka International Racing Course. There was not a lot of action on track, and if it wasn't for grass, there would literally be nothing outside of Jack Doohan's crash.
It was on fire.
It literally, so between practice 2, practice 3, and qualifying, the grass caught on fire 4 different times this weekend, and then it rained before the race, so there was no risk of it catching on fire for the race. But as has been mentioned a couple times this episode, the only exciting thing was Lando Norris turning his F1 car into the world's most expensive lawnmower and cutting that grass on pit exit. So if it wasn't for the grass, this would have been a 6-minute episode. We would have been bish, bash, bosh, in and out. I don't know what we would have talked about. So shout out grass for giving us something.
You would think, why is Suzuka the only place where the grass is an issue? Like
China caught on fire last year.
Yeah, true. Maybe they should just
not the whole country. The grass. I should specify.
Thanks for the specifics.
Yeah, my top is the haters, aka me, because I'm a avid Lando Norris hater, and as a Ferrari fan, I am a McLaren hater, and Lando does not have what it takes to be a world champion. He just complains. He's not a good enough driver. And I think Red Bull has clearly stated Max Verstappen winning the World Drivers' Championship is their goal for the season. And I think if McLaren wants to win it, they're going to have to pick a driver. And I think they're going to pick Oscar because I think Lando has proven he's not going to fight at the front. And Oscar was right behind Lando the entire race. He said, let me go catch Max. I have the pace. Meanwhile, Lando is saving his tires for the next race, even though that's not how that works, because that's all he thinks he does. And Lando said they don't even have the best car and that they have the best driver pairing. First of all, they have the best car by a mile. So, and way back in the day...
that's like pure media speak, right? That's like purely...
Yeah, but way back in the day when Max was winning all his titles back to back to back, he was saying, oh, Max just has the best car. That's why I'm not competing with him. And now Lando has the best car, and Max is driving a tractor, and he's making up excuses. And I'm just a Lando
I'm going to step in here, Matt and Ben. You can't. There's no feedback that you can give Josh on that one.
There is feedback. No, there is feedback I can give.
No, we can't. We can't.
Yes, easily. I don't think that
Y'all are going to sit and argue for an hour. Listeners don't want to hear that.
I don't think it's out of question that Oscar could be the number 1 driver in that team. And I also think that it is ridiculous to think that, McLaren doesn't have the best car. If Lando really thinks that, I didn't see that. If Lando really thinks that, then he's sorely mistaken.
No, J9, I'm giving legit feedback.
I totally saw that on his complaining, but sorry,
J9,
Ben, you go.
I'm giving legit feedback. I think Josh is 110% correct here. I think that Suzuka summed up exactly what I think most people already believe is McLaren right now is the best team in terms of driver pairing, all of that. It's fair. And like I said earlier, unequivocally, Max is the best driver on the grid. And so you see that in Suzuka, which I think is like really important for the sport because there is a driver champion every year. There is a constructors champion every year. And people always say, especially when people were arguing Max versus Lewis, they're like, oh, if they had equal machinery, this one would be better. This one. Well, we never get to find that out, unfortunately. But the thing is the reason I said that Max's qualifying lap needs to be remembered, the reason why Lando tipped his cap to Max after the race, the way Christian Horner said that Max drove an inch-perfect race for 53 laps, is it's not even close. He's the best driver. I'm not even sure I would have Lando definitely not in my top 2, maybe not in my top 3 of drivers on the grid. But the whole thing of Formula One is everything has to go right. You have to have good driver, good car, good strategy, good pit stops. And we've seen time and time again, you can even have 3 of those things. And if somebody hooks up all 4 on a race weekend, you can't beat them. And so I think Josh is spot on here. I think it's easy to get really unhappy with a 2-3 for McLaren. I'm not as pissed off as some people online seem to be. I think it's a very good team result. But McLaren has to find a way to level up even more if they want to take the Drivers' Championship. And that's why I said last year...
level up by prioritizing Oscar Piastri.
We'll see.
Could be.
Time will tell. But we said all last year, you can luck into winning a race. You cannot luck into winning a championship. So, I'm fine to have these discussions at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year, if Lando happens to be the one leading, you can't luck in over a 24 race season. If Max is winning, it's obviously deserved. So, I think it's a good thing to follow. But like J9 said, we got to keep it rolling. For all of you lovely listeners, thank you for listening, of course. So we'll kick it right back to J9. We're now going into our flops.
Yeah, and my flop, there are so many flops that we can talk about. I could be just petty and say the race itself was a flop, which I won't, but the whole thing was a flop. But I really want to say that the team that I'm kind of disappointed in this season is Aston Martin. And I think that they just simply did not bring their A game, or really B or C game, I'd call it an F game, to this race. Not only did Lance Stroll get last, but Fernando Alonso, come on, man, you're a really good driver in a semi-decent car, and you're getting 11th at...
This was the first race he finished all year.
Seriously, and it's just not... It's not the Fernando Alonso that we're all used to seeing. And I guess I want to say all of us in this era of racing. I know that obviously he was phenomenal in the era previous to now that we did not see in person. However, this is just not his year. I don't think this is his car. I don't think this is Aston Martin's year. I don't know what's going on their engineering team and their innovation teams. I don't know, but I am not feeling it this year. I honestly feel more confident in Alpine and Williams and I might even say Kick Sauber. That, I feel more confident in those teams of okay, they're developing and they're getting better. I see Aston Martin not getting better. And I can't say that for any other team. Every other team's okay, they're making it. They're a little bit better than last year. And they're just not great. And so I'm interested to see what will happen further into the year. And if Fernando Alonso can get back on top, because they are a solid midfield team, and they are not right now.
I think they're below midfield team. I think you said, I don't know what the engineering team is doing. Fernando doesn't look the same. I think I know exactly what's happening. I bet if we got to see every team's balance sheet, Aston Martin probably already has the highest percentage of their budget going to next year. Adrian Newey, greatest F1 car designer of all time, only got to start in the office last month once the season was getting underway. Something tells me the reason we don't see feisty Fernando is because the only reason he signed his contract extension into the new regs is to just wait and hang on until the new regs come with an Adrian Newey car.
So now, J9, you have stolen both of my flops. So I'll go with the one that you didn't mention, which was just the race. I just did not. I did not understand why anyone would ever give this higher than maybe a 3. If I'm being really generous, I just thought that there was so little going on, and I didn't mention him as my top, but we got to see Hadjar do really well. The flop definitely goes to those midfield teams that just could not even stand a chance against maybe even a second team driver. So yeah, the race overall is my flop.
I'm glad you gave Isaac Hadjar a shout out because his teammate Liam Lawson is my flop. And there was so much attention on both Yuki and Liam because of really ultimately a ridiculous driver swap 2 races into the season. Liam Lawson going back into VCARB, Yuki getting promoted into Liam's spot at Red Bull. And people are saying, oh, it's going to take a little time for Yuki. And people are saying the same thing about Liam, like, oh, he has to adjust a little bit. What I think the part that people haven't considered is Liam Lawson, just because he gets demoted from Red Bull, does not mean he can get absolutely dog walked by his rookie teammate, Isaac Hadjar. Like, people are saying, oh, nobody can compare to Max. It's harsh what Red Bull did to kick him out earlier. And a lot of drivers showing sympathy were like, oh, Liam Lawson, this could be good for him. The V-Carb looks like it's an easier car to drive. Like, this is where he can rebuild his career. He can't rebuild his career if he qualifies 7 positions behind his rookie teammate, who also was complaining all of qualifying by having problems with his seatbelt being too tight. And then we talk about the race being status quo. Liam Lawson drops 4 places in the race. He's one of the worst performers in the race, while Hadjar goes on. He loses 1 spot to Lewis, who is on an alternate strategy. But Hadjar gets 8th place, gets his first 4 points in Formula One. People were saying, oh, Liam Lawson just needs to rebuild. If he can't even beat his teammate in VCARB after being dropped from Red Bull, he's not even going to have a career to rebuild soon enough. I'm not saying he's going to get kicked out partway through the season, but people were stunned at the end of last year in the offseason. Like, Yuki outperformed Liam, so why is Liam getting promoted? And now the thing is, if Hadjar, who Yuki was outperforming the first couple races of the year, albeit small sample size, now Isaac Hadjar, I know it's only 1 race, but Isaac Hadjar looked far and away better in a car that ultimately Liam Lawson is driving for the first time this year, but drove half of last year. He really has to step it up, because if he is now the back of the sister team, he's never going to make his way back forward in Red Bull or elsewhere, I don't think.
I don't even
back
think
Danny Rick.
They could. I don't even think it's that crazy to say that he could get demoted a second time within the same season, because
I wouldn't be shocked.
Proven that they're ruthless with their driver.
Who would they replace him with?
I have no
Danny
clue.
Rick.
But they got rid. Bring back Ricardo a third time. They got rid of Nick DeVries a few years ago mid race. They've obviously swapped Daniel Ricciardo in and out as much as they've wanted, and they clearly have a short leash on Lawson. So.
But yeah,
I'm interested to see if he
maybe they just bring in another rookie that they think will be like better to develop.
They do have Lindblad as a reserve driver who's like 17-year-old, and they love promoting their young drivers.
Lindblad.
But everybody's
Swedish?
Like I said, everybody was talking about, oh, how does Liam compare to Max? How does Liam compare to Yuki? Nobody took the time to think Liam also has to worry about Isaac Hadjar, who, despite spinning in the formation lap of the first race, since then has looked
in the rain.
Yeah, since then has looked phenomenal. Like, you could argue, given the same car as Kimi Antonelli, could be fighting in kind of the similar stratosphere. So I think Liam's got a harder road ahead of him than people were even seeing looking just at the short term.
Yeah. My flop is our predictions, because we are not doing so hot right now.
Oof.
And maybe it's because we've all been picking Lando Norris to win the races, and he hasn't been doing that.
Roasted.
So this race, there were 2 points between the 4 of us combined. J9 got both of them. You picked Verstappen on pole and Behrman in P10. None of us got
my predictions. Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
None of us got.
That's the energy all of the championships need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hot takes, Ben, you said Alpine points. Didn't happen. I said Alonso points. 11th, pretty close, didn't happen. J9, you said Kimi top 5. He was 6th, so close. Didn't count. And Matt, you went McLaren dominance with pole, double podium win, fastest lap and fastest pit stop. And they didn't do any of that. They got a double podium.
No, but Matt specified that the double podium included a winner. So no pois.
And fastest pit stop went to Ferrari, because our pit crew is dominant. We've gotten it every single race so far this season. So
okay.
Oh, so it's just the driving that's bad?
Yeah, we got to celebrate the small wins here. It's a tough season. So with J9, you're a huge 2 points. You are now tied for second with Matt. I'm still in first with 8. You guys both have 6. Ben, you haven't scored since the first race, and you only have 2
I've already
points.
put most of my prediction budget into the new regulations, so I will see y'all next year.
I'm sure that's how it works.
I've gotten a legendary Formula One predictor designing my predictions for next season, so don't worry. Enjoy it while you can.
Next episode, Bahrain preview, there's a whole new opportunity for you guys to mess up your picks.
You don't have to wait long because it is a triple header. They are going to be using the same tires, so hopefully we get a different result at a different track, but we will talk about that, as Josh said, in the Bahrain Grand Preview episode, so we hope to see you there. Thank you for listening along. Oh my gosh, my words. Be sure to check us out on all of our socials at Low Downforce Pod, and if you'd rather watch along instead of just listen along, Low Downforce on YouTube. Be sure to check us out. We will talk to you very soon. Until then, stay speedy, everybody. Goodbye.